What's up everyone, Karue here, and today we have a banger of a video. I've been posting on YouTube now for over 5 years. And in those 5 years, my forehand has changed a lot. Some changes were deliberate, some not so much, some were honestly just idiotic. So in today's video, we're gonna watch that progression together. I'll give you some of my thoughts on what I was trying to work on at that specific moment in time. And at the end, just answer a simple question. Did any of these changes make a difference? And I also want to give you a little guidance in case you are currently trying to change something in your game so you can do that effectively. So welcome to the channel. Calf is getting better. I'm starting to do fitness again, a few hours on court. And I'm hoping by mid-May, I'm good to go. So yeah, let's do this. Let's watch 5 years of forehand changes. I haven't watched these in a long time, so we're gonna suffer through this together. Let's go. All right, let's have some fun here. So I'm gonna try to react as we go and sort of retrospectively, that was a mouthful, try to remember what was my thought process at the time. And we're gonna start with a banger. All right, so this is 2020. At Australian Open, right before the pandemic, when I went with Naomi, hitting on Rod Laver Arena. So at that time, you see I have a little bit more of like a flippy hand there at the top, kind of like, you know, Novak or even Sinner nowadays, or most guys really do. You know, the face of the racket turns at the top there. I like it where it's at here, to be honest. Oh, we got a double screen here. It's funny seeing the evolution of like what we did. But I remember at the time I was a lot more focused on like in my swing. I wasn't so aware of maybe my limitations with the lower body. Even though again it looks fine here. So some nice shoes. But I think that's sort of like tilt. I was kind of trying to do a little bit of the Novak, to be honest. I know it might not look like that. Again, I don't mind the swing here. You can tell it's a little forced. There's something about it that is a bit off. And I think I'm very overly concerned about my like swing there. I don't like my elbow position, like gets a little bit too far behind me here, and then I get a little guidey. That's something you guys obviously notice I try to fix in the last few years. All right, let's move to a different video. All right, this one at Indian Wells. I got to play in a lot of dope courts with Naomi. That was a good part of the gig. But yeah, similar swing here. Again, I don't particularly love that elbow position right at the end there. I don't particularly love, you know, how the racket gets like super far behind me here before the acceleration continues. That's not something I love because I had this like feeling that I kind of lost the racket behind me here at some point. And again, as you see the progression later on, I try to fix that. So it's good for certain things. I thought it was kind of good for absorbing pace. It created a little bit, maybe a little bit more shape on the forehand. Yeah. But I never felt like I could really like let go. I could absorb pace well, maybe shape the ball a little bit more. But when I had to hit it big, I didn't really like that swing. And to be honest, I still sort of see or saw the same like shots or the game the same way as I see now. It's just, I think today's forehand is a little more effective at doing what I want to do naturally. But yeah, that's 2020. Let's move to 2021. All right, 2021. I'm practicing with Naomi here. I'm back with the Yonex. It was the V-Core 95. So here you can tell this. I'm starting to maybe make a higher take back, right? Like it goes kind of like above my head a little bit more. It's not so just like kind of straight back elbow. I like the fluidity of this one. Yeah, it's a little bit higher take back there, still have sort of the flip. That just happens naturally because we're more on the western side. That's the only reason. You're not really thinking about it just flipping. It just like sort of naturally does. But you can tell like I'm going a little bit higher. The motion is good here. There's a good fluidity to the whole thing. I don't particularly love it because it's still very reliant on just the action of the arm. Like I remember specifically, all I was worried about was like the timing of the arm. What was happening in my lower body was not too much of a concern, which can be a little problematic. Obviously, it wasn't like it was terrible lower body, but a lot of thought into the swing here, and so you can tell I was like trying something there. I think it's just more for power. Never like I took the racket back higher. It was always to try to increase a little power because I just don't have those like quick hands to have this too compact of a swing. Okay, so this one is absolutely hilarious. The OGs will remember the Delpo forehand. Look at that take back. That is horrific. I made a whole video about how I was changing my forehand to, kind of do the Delpo forehand. Very high take back. He was obviously in a much more, Eastern grip, so it was never going to work from the start because he was, he was literally like slapping the ball like this, right? He wasn't in like a more Western, semi-Western grip like I am. But the funny story behind it was that Marcos and I were talking about Delpo's forehand in Miami and just like joking around, doing the Delpo forehand. And as we watched the video, we were like, that looks really nice. Maybe you should hit your forehand like that. And the next day in practice, I started doing it. And again, it was not the right thing to do, but I did it. It was kind of funny. I don't hate it the way you look, but you can tell it's very like forced, right? It's just not conducive of like how I play tennis in any way. And it's just kind of hilarious. Look at that. Look at that thing. It's so silly. Does have a good like fluidity to it. So like with hitting down the middle is perfectly fine. The problem is once you start playing points with that, I just felt like I had no time. I was always just kind of late on it. And so again, we're only really watching for the most part like me hitting down the middle, and everything is easy when you're just hitting down the middle, but when you add the pressure of matches, and again, as much as actually I'm doing a decent job here clearing the hips and pushing, it's still very much so all reliant on my arm, and my arm is dictating everything versus just coming from the ground up, and I don't like that. So, but hilarious. OGs, if you remember the Delpo forehand, let me know in the comments because that was pretty funny.
Backhand speed, right? Making sure I can swing fast through the ball, and obviously using my body, using the energy of the ground to going to go up and down and stay on the court, right? So obviously that's why,
Guys, just a quick break to thank today's video sponsor, Grunes. I might be injured, but I need to keep my good habits, so obviously I continue to take my 8 gummies a day. Super easy. I love Grunes because it's convenient all-in-one formula packed into 8 gummies. The last thing I need is to travel with like powders or a bunch of pills. This is so much easier. And Grunes isn't just a multivitamin, a greens gummy, or a prebiotic. It's all of those things and more at a fraction of a price. Grunes contains 20 plus vitamins, 60 plus whole food ingredients, prebiotics, adaptogens, you name it. And they're vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and have low sugar or sugar-free options. And because they're gummies, they help your body absorb the nutrients better than powders and pills. And Grunes contains 100% of your daily needs for safe vitamins and 25% of your daily needs for certain minerals that are known to be potentially toxic at excessive levels over an extended period of exposure. And Grunes gummies are methylated, meaning all people can absorb the critical nutrients. So if you want to try them out, there's a link in the description. You can get up to 52% off your order. Thanks, Grunes, for continuing to support the channel and my health. Go check them out. Link in the description.
All right, 2023 back on Rod Laver Arena, this time playing with Marcos. This was probably the day before he played Daniil Medvedev. So here, so 2023 is where I start like sort of experimenting with making the swing a little more compact. Do you see it's a little bit more outside, the elbow is not getting so far behind me. Yeah. This is, I think Marcus and I were talking about this, that, you know, just trying to get a little more simplicity on the stroke. That was me trying to do a Daniel. But this is the first time like we sort of start moving towards the direction of where my forehand is now. It's basically what it is now, to be honest. I like where it's at here. It's a little guidey here, where I think I was playing with gut. Marcos was playing gut here, so I had gut in my racket as well. But you can tell I'm starting to do something different. It's funny how like the take back changes, but very rarely, you know, the follow through changes, right? And that's, you know, perhaps the should have been more of the focus instead of the take back. But here again, we sort of move into a more compact stroke, but I'm still not necessarily that good at, you know, weight transfer or understanding the lower body part of the whole thing, you know. And so, you know, as a cautionary story for you guys, it's like it's always better to improve the lower body first. I think the upper body catches up. Let's watch another video here. Okay, so now this is the video that actually did very well on the channel when I talked about the swing improvements and how I had won just like, I think 2 PCTs and 2 men's opens. And I really like where my forehand is here. I'm talking about it in the video, but again, it's that sort of creating that spacing, not allowing the elbow to get too far behind me. And what that allowed me, you know, mentally, with not having the elbow so far behind me, was to actually allow the racket to drop and go with more power, where I felt like when the swing was too big, right, and if I was too far behind me, there's nowhere to go here, so you sort of have to muscle the racket back forward. So now in this video, I finally start talking a little bit more about footwork, and something that, again, Marcos, we talk tennis a lot, told me, he's like, maybe try to not feel so like I was trying to like load and explode, which made me like kind of stop. And we discussed it. We were like, maybe try to like not feel like you're loading so much, and instead just trying to like stay in motion. You're still gonna load, you're still gonna push, but just kind of feel like I'm never really just like fully stopping and then just having that weird pause. I'm just kind of moving through the shot, staying on my toes until that last second, and the whole kinetic chain just works a little more fluidly. See, I stop, it's a feel versus real, but I'm trying to like allow that to happen sort of in the last second, where before, if you know, from like 2021 videos, you see how I'm like, you know, it's all in the arm, the legs just kind of stop, and you just like, I'm just trying to force everything through here, versus like putting myself in good positions to hit the shot using my legs a little bit more. And I think obviously there's the third adjustment here that I talk about in the video, trying to keep my head more still like that, like Roger, you know, like through the contact a little bit more, like my shoulder like rotate through the contact a little bit more. Yeah, just you see like just that little bit extra sort of like time watching the contact became super helpful. Again, as much as it changed, I mean, I really like this forehand here. As much as it changed, it still continues to be a very similar through, similar kind of stroke. But that just, to me, was the beginning of where like I started to feel like, okay, I got to a place where no, my forehand is not going to be the best forehand of all time, but it's a very serviceable forehand that allows me to play the style I want to play. This right here was pre-season. I had just switched to the Percept, and now if you pay attention to it, the stroke has gotten a little bit too short, a little bit too like, you can tell I've been thinking about this, like, making it more compact, more about just kind of catching in front, using pace. But the racket just kind of doesn't really get like to a vertical position. It stays a little bit too close that way. I don't particularly like that. I like the racket going up a little bit because then there's just more momentum. I like to feel momentum. I was obviously not playing bad here because I won pretty sure I won a PTT and a 25K very soon after this. And it's good for certain things, like you said, like you can see there absorbing some of Marcus's pace, keeping the ball in front. You see how my legs are in motion, like we talked about, on the last video. But this one I don't fully like. It's slightly too compact, maybe a little bit too robotic. Maybe you guys like it. I don't mind it, but I don't know. Okay, so this match here was in the second round, I believe, in Lima, the Lima Challenger, and in Lima I was playing really well. If I look back at the tournaments from last year, from 2024, Lima was probably the one that I was like, the ball striking was next level. I was hitting the ball so well. I had a feeling I was going to win the tournament, and then I had food poisoning. But this one here, you'll be able to see where it's like I start just making the racket just go a little bit higher, and I can hit more through the court. And I was just hitting winners, left and right on this match. So let's watch a little bit. There, it's just a little bit higher, that take back. You see, boom, just a little. The loop is a little bit better. I like a loop. I'm not the kind of guy that like wants to have this like very compact stroke. There, a little bit more of a loop. Starts a little bit more like vertical, the racket. Nothing crazy, but just a little bit. There, so you can see from that side a little bit more. Still, like, again, I think with making the racket slightly the hit a little bit more compact, I maybe lost sometimes a little bit of the fluidity of the motion. It's like sometimes I get to that position a little bit too fast, and then there's a pause. I never like pauses. Yeah, there was just like good acceleration through on these ones. Yep, nice. Boom. Nice. This one here for sure, it's a good one from last year. It's a little more fluid, again, not too like low, and just so you get a little bit too, if you kind of lose momentum. I don't necessarily was trying to lift my arm up more, just like have the sensation of like sort of like my shoulders getting a little bit of a lift from the ready position, and then it allows to drop nicely into the slot and then through the court. So yeah, that's 2024. Again, little bit of variation, can watch all the videos. But for the most part, those are the things I was trying. Let's go to 2025. All right, 2025 with the Technifiber now. This is my match against Felix. I like where my forehand is here. It's a little bit of a mix of everything, but you can tell, like, my take back's slightly higher. I'm trying to use the momentum of the racket a little bit more. It's still pretty compact, but I like the acceleration through there. See, boom, the racket starts just slightly more vertical. Boom. Nice. Yeah, so you can tell here I'm getting some good rack head speed. The motion doesn't feel too like, constricted by trying to make it compact, right? But yeah, I think my legs are moving nicely through here. The racket's staying nice and in front, but has good acceleration. Can watch that a couple times. Whoa. It's still smooth, is the way I like it, right? It's not too forced. I'm not forcing the spin. I'm not forcing. Nice. Oh, that's a good gap by him. But it feels, let's watch this one again, just like the first couple of forehands here. But there's something Marco said too, it's like the acceleration of the racket needs to like almost like look right, make sense for your body, for your style. Some people have a lot more racket head speed than I do. We have less racket head speed than I do, and it feels natural. And sometimes when I watch, I've been lucky to be able to watch a lot of my tennis because of the channel. And so you can see it that there's something a bit off. The speed through the shot, the acceleration, something. It's like, it might be nitpicking, but it obviously at my level we need to figure out a way to like play at the best of our capabilities. As of now, that's kind of what I'm feeling. Is it perfect? No. Do I still make some of the same errors? Yes. But I'm just finding that sweet spot that I always kind of have on the back and side, the weight transfer, the acceleration, the hands through it also sort of flows in a speed that my body processes very well, where on the forehand side, you can get like, I need more racket head speed, I need less racket head speed, it needs to be more compact, this and that, and then you end up not being at a sort of natural like fluidity to the whole thing. But after watching all of this together, let's break it all down. This whole swing changes, I know players are obsessed with that, but is your intention when making these changes right? And that's what can mess you up. So let's do that.
Right, that was interesting watching this back, not gonna lie. I don't tend to watch videos back aside from matches, so it was interesting to look back and see where, you know, the stroke was and trying to remember kind of what was my thought process, why I was trying to do certain things. But let's touch on a couple of things here. First, did they help? Did any of these changes help? I think starting 2023 is where, you know, the direction of the modifications I was making made the most sense. It's when I started to make the swing slightly more compact, which I mentioned a lot there, that, you know, I felt kind of like I had lost my elbow behind me versus just having, you know, just a little bit more out there. I think anything else that I was doing before 2023 was not helpful. Obviously the Delpo one was so dumb. And that was it, right? Like starting 2023, I just sort of went into a simplification mindset. Let's try to make this as repeatable and reliable as possible. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But what he did was, again, allow me to play sort of the style I want, right? Like I like to take the ball early. I like to take time away. So if I have too big of a stroke, right, like too long of a stroke, I won't be able to do that as effectively, at least. Whereas if I have a more compact stroke, obviously I can be more effective at taking time away. But as you notice, you can also kind of go too far the other way, right? Where sometimes the forehand looked just a little bit too compact, a little bit too like contrived, where it wasn't as fluid as maybe when it was like a bigger swing, right? So you need to always be finding this balance, and there isn't a final form. And that's, I think, the problem. The problem that amateurs, I think even ourselves, we're looking for is that there's going to be this final form. That like, here's where we get to, and now it's like great, and it's never gonna change. Technique is a very weird thing. It's always in constant evolution. So you need to just kind of be careful about like where it's evolving to. Obviously, there's always more information to learn. You're taking a tip from here, a tip from there, and you start plucking it into your game. And sometimes it can be very helpful, and sometimes obviously it can be, again, like the Delpo thing, just absolutely dumb. But while this entire journey of changing the forehand at the end of the day helped me, stylistically, the way I played, the way I saw my shots, is still in 2020. I was naturally good at taking the ball early and going in, taking time away. The spots on the court that I like to hit my forehand from, for the most part, continue to be the same. And the spots that I don't really like hitting my forehand from also kind of continue to be the same. But through this entire process, even though I make changes, even though everything feels a lot more natural on my forehand side, it will never be like my backhand, ever. Backhand side, I can do all kinds of things on the backhand side and it doesn't matter, it just feels natural. Where on the forehand side, there's just more thought process. Now, the goal with any change, especially for you guys, but to me as well, is to think less, right? So if you're making a change and you're thinking too much, it's probably not gonna work out. And so to me, again, looking through that progression, where I do feel good about the whole process is that I do feel like I have to think less when I hit my forehand nowadays. Is it perfect? No. Do I still need to like look at it sometimes to be like, what's going on? Something feels a little off. Yes, but I definitely don't obsess over it as much anymore. So again, as you make any changes in your game, it is very important to keep that in mind, to not overcomplicate things from the jump. Make small corrections. Maybe it's gonna start from your feet. Maybe it's gonna start with the swing, contact point, grip. But go like one thing at a time. Look, it took me 5 years to get to where I'm at, and probably a lot of pros out there. I'm still, you know, there's still all the trolls out there and all the people commenting on my game that my forehand is not good enough, blah, blah, blah. I like where I'm at now. I'm not overthinking it too much. But I thought that was fun, you know, 5 years on YouTube. You can really look back at your game and be like, ooh, what was I doing there? What was I doing here? But yeah, thanks for watching. Shout out to all of you that joined the Karue Tennis Club. It's a marketplace for tennis players by tennis players. The link is in the description. It's free to join. If you have stuff to sell in your garage, some used gear, whatever it is, sign up, become a seller, sell it up there. We also have a bunch of chats going on there, which is super fun. Again, link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.